Long ago in another realm stood the majestic kingdom of Tal'Dorei. Once the battlefields of gods and titans, its lands now harbor magic, wonder, and mystery. It was a time of peace until a great evil arrived. The beast has slain countless heroes, mercenaries whom the castle has sent to get rid of the mysterious beast, and now all hope is lost. In the grand city of Emon, the Tal'Dorei Council convenes to discuss a pressing threat in the Shale Steppes. Their crops, vital to the city's survival, are being devastated by the unknown force, and all hired mercenaries have failed to solve the crisis. Frustrated, they resolve to widen their search for capable warriors. Meanwhile, in a local tavern, the notorious mercenary band Vox Machina engages in a drinking contest. Grog emerges victorious, but the celebration turns sour when a rowdy patron, Agar, picks up a fight with Keyleth. Despite Vax's attempts to de-escalate, the situation erupts into a full-blown brawl, with all but Scanlan, who is busy seducing the tavern keeper's daughter, somehow adding to the chaos. The furious tavern keeper throws them out for both fighting and failing to pay their tab. As they lament their financial woes, Scanlan stumbles upon a job posting seeking mercenaries. With no other prospects, the party agrees to take the job, hoping for a much-needed payday. It's time they do something worthy. Hungover and devastated, they present themselves at the palace the next day, nearly getting turned away at the gates. However, after flashing the job posting, they gain entry, though their beloved bear must wait outside. The skeptical council questions their competence, but Scanlan wins them over with an exaggerated song and illusionary display. General Krieg vouches for them, and Sovereign Uriel, amused by their bear, grants them the mission. They are assigned to Lady Allura as their guide and set off for the Shale Steppes via skyship. Lucky break for the gang, finally. While some revel in wonder of flying, Vex confides in Vax about a strange twinge in her head, which she first felt in the council chambers. Upon landing, the party disperses to gather information in the village. Keyleth communes with nature while Scanlan interrogates a local too aggressively, forcing Vex to step in. A villager, recognizing Pike's holy symbol, asks for a blessing against evil plaguing them. Though doubtful, the woman is grateful. Meanwhile, Vax impresses a boy with sleight of hand, gifting him a silver coin. Then, the villagers reveal a crucial detail. The attacking creature flies. Vex tracks its path, and upon seeing its massive footprints shift to humanoid form, warns the group that danger is near. Dismissing her concern, they laugh at the sight of a lone lamb, only for a massive blue dragon to descend and crush it mercilessly. The mystery is solved, but horror sets in as the dragon unleashes a storm of lightning. Outmatched, the party barely survives, thanks to Keyleth's magic concealing them until the beast departs. At least someone is useful. With Grog gravely injured, Pike heals him, but the encounter leaves the group shaken. Keyleth is terrified, and most consider abandoning their mission. Vex, however, is certain that someone on the council is in league with the dragon. Unwilling to return to Emon, they instead head back to the village, only to find it annihilated. The family they met earlier is dead, save for the young boy Vax had gifted a coin. He dies in Vax's arms, leaving the rogue clutching the bloodied silver. Grief turns to resolve. Scanlan declares they're going to kill a dragon. Keyleth agrees. Grog seeks revenge. One by one, Vox Machina embraces their fate. Not for money, not for survival, but for vengeance. Hell yeah, this is the Vox Machina we all need. At the military encampment outside Emon, General Krieg desperately rallies his troops against the looming threat. Fear grips the soldiers, but he and his lieutenants do their best to inspire courage. Their resolve is short-lived. That night, all hell breaks loose, and the blue dragon strikes. The archer's arrows bounce off its scales, and even a catapult does little more than irritate the beast. The massacre is swift and brutal. Nearly no one survives. Back in Emon, Vox Machina reports to the Tal'Dorei Council, revealing the threat to be a blue dragon. However, the council already knows. Krieg had reported the attack earlier. They remain skeptical of the mercenaries' abilities, and Krieg pushes for mustering Emon's army, despite Kima of Vord's protests. Sovereign Uriel approves the plan, but Vex feels that strange pain in her head again. Someone on the council is hiding something. Outside, she shares her suspicion with the group, and they set their sights on Gregory Fince as the likely traitor. Seeking information, Pike and Vax visit Gilmore's glorious goods. The flamboyant Sean Gilmore greets them warmly, particularly Vax, much to Pike's confusion. He warns that most dragon lore is nonsense, but finds an old text stating dragons will be killed where two rivers meet. Vex thanks him, hinting at an owed dinner. Something really fishy going on with these two. Meanwhile, Grog and Scanlan, lounging in the town square, spot Fince and track him to a large estate, General Krieg's home. They suspect an assassination plot, alert the party, and prepare to break in. While Keyleth and Scanlan struggle with the door, Vax smugly picks the lock with a toothpick from Grog's sandwich, earning Grog's lament over its loss. Inside, they find Fince stealing documents. When confronted, he insists he's gathering evidence, but before he can explain, Krieg appears and murders him from behind. The realization hits. The true traitor isn't Fince. It's Krieg. He vanishes into another room, and the group scrambles to find a way forward. What in the blue hell just happened now? Their search leads them to a tapestry of a red dragonborn woman. Grog, distracted by its beauty, stares until Keyleth disgustingly throws a book at him, only for it to phase through the fabric. The tapestry hides a portal. Despite Scanlan's reluctance, they step through, emerging into a frigid cave atop a distant mountain. Piles of treasure glisten around them. As they greedily gather loot, an ominous orb watches them before crumbling. Krieg reappears, revealing his true plan. He wanted Emon's army mustered only to be annihilated. He transforms into Brimscythe, the Iron Storm, declaring the return of dragon rule. Vox Machina is disorganized at first, but Vax deciphers the cryptic Two Rivers phrase. It refers to the veins in a dragon's neck. Vex forms a strategy. They'll use their apparent incompetence as bait. When Brimscythe lunges at their argument, he strikes an illusion. The real attack follows, a coordinated assault on his throat, creating a deep wound. Grog lands the final, brutal strike. The cavern collapses, and they barely escape with meager treasure. In Emon, Uriel rewards them with honorary council membership and a keep to safeguard the city. He warns of an upcoming banquet to investigate Krieg's conspiracy. Beyond the city, a carriage halts at a blocked road. Delilah Briarwood orders the driver to go around, but Silas Briarwood steps out instead. Bandits try to stop him. He butchers them effortlessly, then calmly returns to the carriage. Their journey to Emon continues. Trouble is coming. Don't worry, it's just goosebumps. Long ago, the Derola family laughed together, a noble house basking in its own warmth. That idyllic moment shatters into terror. Percy and his sister flee into the night, bloodied and hunted. The family is slaughtered by assassins. His sister, struck by a volley of arrows, falls before his eyes. Percy wakes up from the nightmare, but the ghosts of his past never truly leave. When Vex finds him wandering the halls, she asks if he had a bad dream. He has never had a good one. At breakfast in their newly awarded keep, Vox Machina revels in crude games and mischief, with Grog and Vex engaged in an absurd contest of ball smacking. Even Scanlan joins in. Allura Vysoren arrives, reminding them of Sovereign Uriel's banquet that evening. She expresses concern over their decorum, but Percy, delighted at the idea of proper manners, vows to polish them into presentable guests. Dressed in their finery, Vox Machina enters the banquet, their weapons reluctantly surrendered. But Percy's etiquette training crumbles as they revert to their usual chaos. What a surprise. Then, an announcement. The arrival of Delilah and Silas Briarwood from Whitestone. Percy freezes. Vex notices his fear, and he confesses. The Briarwoods stole everything from him when they murdered his entire family. The group quickly huddles and devises a plan. While the others take their seats across from the Briarwoods, Vax slips away to search their room for clues. At the table, Percy's glare burns into the couple, his anger barely restrained. Meanwhile, Silas uses his hypnotic magic to silence Uriel's concerns about Whitestone's well-being, an enchantment only Keyleth notices. As Delilah weaves a false tale of their rule, Percy can't hold back. He calls her a liar. Silence grips the room. The Briarwoods, undisturbed, rise to leave. As they pass a mirror, Vex glimpses the truth. Silas casts no reflection. He is a vampire. Vax, meanwhile, discovers a book referencing the Whispered One and hurriedly pockets it. Before he can escape, the Briarwoods enter, trapping him. His attempts to pass as a servant and even flirt his way out fail. Silas enthralls him with his vampiric charm. Sensing danger, Vex alerts the group just as Vax, breaking free, shouts their safe word, Jenga, before diving out the window with the Briarwoods in pursuit. Vox Machina races to Vax's aid, reclaiming their weapons in the process, but the Briarwoods are overwhelmingly powerful. Silas's sword drinks his enemy's blood. His wounds heal instantly, and Delilah wields dark magic with effortless cruelty. The fight spirals out of control, but Keyleth conjures a wall of massive plants, buying them enough time to escape. Palace guards rush toward the commotion. As the Briarwoods flee in their carriage, Delilah invites Percy to visit Whitestone with an unsettling cheer. Furious at their escape, Percy turns to Desmond, their driver. A strange, hissing smoke curls around Percy as he dons a plague doctor's mask and raises his gun. Desmond begs for mercy. He knows nothing, but Percy shoots off his fingers, claiming his soul as forfeit. Uriel arrives, flanked by guards. Behind him, an oblivious Scanlan hums a tune. Uriel declares Vox Machina under arrest. Everything has gone from bad to worse. At the hearing, Sovereign Uriel chastises Vox Machina for their reckless actions at the banquet. He orders their arrest, but Allura steps in, calming the situation. Vex warns her that the Briarwoods have manipulated Uriel's mind. Though skeptical, Allura acknowledges his strange behavior and agrees to let them prove it. For now, Vox Machina is placed under house arrest in their keep. Grog, ever literal, asks the most pressing question. How can you arrest a house? Meanwhile, in their carriage back to Whitestone, Delilah Briarwood realizes her book has been stolen. Panic sets in, but Silas, eerily composed, assures that retrieving it is already part of their plan. At the keep, Captain Jarrett and his men confiscate Vox Machina's weapons and lock them in. They are frustrated as Grog trains loudly. Pike withdraws, preoccupied with her fading connection to Everlight. Keyleth idly creates flowers, and Percy strategizes. Scanlan flips through Delilah's book, hoping to uncover something useful. Vax, however, fixates on a terrifying question. Has he been turned into a vampire? A quick glance at his reflection offers relief. Tensions rise when Vex confronts Percy about his breakdown at the feast. With Vax and Keyleth backing her, Percy finally reveals the truth. The Briarwoods came to Whitestone as supposed allies, but massacred his family, turned his trusted tutor against them, and tortured him and his siblings. He and Cassandra tried to escape, but she was struck down in the attempt. His rage is raw, his vow for vengeance absolute. Vex asks the burning question. What's the plan? Later in the day, Percy uncovers a secret passage. Vox Machina makes their escape, but with Pike's holy light diminished and Keyleth struggling with her magic, they stumble through the darkness. At the other end, Jarrett awaits, promptly splitting them up and locking them in separate rooms. All that trouble for nothing. Nice. Vax and Vex consider running away as they did in Singorn, but for the first time, they choose to stay. Pike, desperate for answers, praying in the shrine, finds only darkness. Her frustration spills into tears, but Grog, earnest as ever, suggests she simply apologize to Everlight. Outside, shadows slither through the night as the Briarwoods have given birth to the dead. The guards barely register the torches flickering out before wraiths descend, cutting them down. Inside, Keyleth confides in Percy about her own doubts. She cannot return home until she proves herself, but fears she never will. Percy, despite his own torment, assures her that she is worthy. Grog, somehow sensing trouble, breaks their doors down. They rush into the main hall where Jarrett, at first blaming them, quickly realizes the real threat. The wraiths attack, draining life from anyone in their path. Light weakens them, but they keep snuffing it out. Percy urges Keyleth to prove herself. Summoning all her will, she conjures a brilliant burst of sunlight. With renewed strength, Vox Machina tears through the wraiths, reveling in their victory. Jarrett, seeing their true cause, releases them. The next morning, Percy prepares to leave alone, but the group refuses. Whitestone is his fight, but it's theirs now too. Pike, however, must take another path. To regain her bond with Everlight, she needs to visit a temple. She hugs a crestfallen Grog and encourages Keyleth to be their guiding light. As Pike stays behind, Vox Machina sets off toward Whitestone. A long road lies ahead, and they know exactly what awaits them at the end. Under the cover of night, Vax, Vex, and a squirrel-shaped Keyleth sneak through Emon, dodging guards as they break into Gilmore's glorious goods. Before they can gather supplies, Gilmore traps them with magic. They hurriedly explain their dire situation and promise to pay. Gilmore relents, but not before catching a certain spark between Vax and Keyleth, something Vex also notices. While shopping, Vex finds enchanted arrows. Vax picks up a wooden stake, and Gilmore provides holy water, knowing they'll need it against vampires. With their supplies in hand, they regroup with the rest of Vox Machina, except Pike. In a stolen horse cart with Percy behind the reins, Vex, perched as lookout, teases Percy about his ever-present bitch face, while Scanlan and Keyleth attempt to decode Delilah Briarwood's book. They uncover a chilling revelation. Delilah is planning something involving a Ziggurat. Meanwhile, Vax comforts Grog, who is visibly upset about Pike staying behind. Oh, the big friendly giant. As they travel toward Whitestone, the forest darkens unnaturally. Vex, ever perceptive, spots strange wolf-like creatures stalking them and orders Percy to stop. Keyleth, attempting to communicate with them, quickly realizes they are anything but ordinary wolves. Grotesque beings with multi-jawed mouths and writhing tongues. Percy deduces that they were sent by Delilah. Before they can react, one of the creatures seizes Scanlan and the book, making a break for it. The chase begins. Keyleth conjures vines to create bridges for Percy as the rest fend off the beasts. Grog savagely cuts down two, while Keyleth becomes wilder when one sinks its teeth into Vax. The creature carrying Scanlan leaps toward a cliff. Vex fires an arrow with a rope for Scanlan to grab, but as the cart tumbles over, the rope snaps. Luckily, Scanlan saves himself with Scanlan's hand. The bad news? The book, and all their supplies from Gilmore's, are lost. Worse yet, the creature's severed torso drags itself away, clutching the book. Back in Whitestone, the beast delivers the book to Delilah, who discusses residuum refining with Silas, Byron Anders, and Carrion Stonefell. Meanwhile, 7 villagers, including a small child, are brought into the castle. Delilah, all sweet smiles, assures the child they're here for something special. In the forest, Vox Machina sets up camp. Scanlan reads from a scroll salvaged from Brimscythe's lair, much to Grog's delight, and gains shape-shifting abilities. As the fire crackles, Keyleth and Vax talk, under Vex's watchful and suspicious gaze. Later, Vex warns Vax against trusting Keyleth, but he refuses to let past betrayals dictate his future. Meanwhile, Pike reaches a temple of Everlight, confessing to the cleric that she has felt cut off from her goddess since being attacked. Fearing she is cursed, she is warmly welcomed inside. Perhaps, at last, she will find her light again. That night, Vox Machina shares past victories, but when it's Percy's turn, he speaks only of the Briarwoods. As the others drift off, he stays awake, spinning the barrel of the list, names etched in cold vengeance: Stonefell, Silas, Delilah. By morning, they reach Whitestone. Percy describes the once beautiful city, its sacred sun tree, a gift of the Dawn Father himself. But his words ring hollow as they step into a broken town, its people hollowed by fear. Then, Percy freezes. Strung up on the sun tree hang 7 corpses, dressed like them. Keyleth, horror-struck, breathes, "It's us." A cold welcome indeed. In the depths of Whitestone, the rebel leader Archibald Desney and his allies strategize their next move with the aid of a spy known as the Kestrel. Their plans are violently interrupted when a monstrous zombie stone giant rips through their hideout, slaughtering or capturing most of the rebels. Carrion Stonefell arrives, smugly collecting Archie as a prized prisoner. Meanwhile, at the Sun Tree, Keyleth suggests removing the 7 hanged corpses, horrific effigies of Vox Machina, but Percy warns against it. The town is being watched. Forced into hiding, the group follows the whispers of a resident to escape into an alley just as a giant prowls the streets. Elsewhere, the priestess Keeper Yenin preaches patience and hope to her congregation. As she departs, Vox Machina follows, when Percy, face concealed, quietly asks if she truly believes in a sign from the Dawnfather. Yenin recognizes him. Sorrow fills her eyes. Percy is not the boy she once knew. She leads them to a rebel hideout, where Grog is devastated to learn Whitestone's suffering extends even to a lack of ale. Now he wants to kill the Briarwoods even more. Percy, however, finds a moment of joy. His childhood friend Archie leads the rebels. Meanwhile, Keyleth attempts to connect with the Sun Tree through its roots, hoping to understand its pain. Determined to rescue Archie, Vox Machina formulates a plan. At the Temple of Everlight, Pike once again wanders the Dark Realm, the distant light taunting her. Fire suddenly engulfs her vision. Snapping back, she confesses her fear. Delilah Briarwood's magic has severed her bond with Everlight, but the head cleric reveals the truth. This is not a curse inflicted upon her, but something within Pike herself. In Whitestone's prison, Stonefell sneers at Archie's defiance, ordering Goran Vedmire to break him. Vedmire wastes no time, tearing off Archie's ear without hesitation. Back at the rebel hideout, Keyleth, Scanlan, and Grog pitch absurd escape plans, all swiftly dismissed by Vax. Vex, prioritizing efficiency, insists they must locate Archie first. Percy scouts through his rifle sights, watching Vedmire interrogate and knock Archie unconscious. They quickly put a plan into action. Vex distracts the guards with flirtation while Grog knocks them out, allowing Keyleth to grab the keys. Vax struggles to unlock the door, and Scanlan's attempts to assist only result in injury. Meanwhile, rebels eager for blood charge inside, drawing attention. The back door finally opens, thanks to a guard stepping out to empty a chamber pot, which he dumps onto Vax and Scanlan before promptly dying. Vox Machina rescues Archie, who is shocked to see Percy alive. However, Stonefell captures Scanlan, ordering his execution. Ever resourceful, Scanlan escapes with an illusion, and a full battle erupts. Percy is urged to flee with Archie, but when he sees Stonefell, a sinister glow illuminates the man's name on the list. Consumed by vengeance, Percy abandons the mission, masked in darkness and smoke. Stonefell confesses that he killed the Derolos for fun. Percy, disgusted, muttering, "You were the one I was least looking forward to." He guns Stonefell down mercilessly, and as the final shot rings out, the name vanishes from his weapon. Vax calls out to Percy, who, startled, nearly turns his gun on him. Vax scolds him for risking everything for revenge, but Percy insists it is his duty as the last Derolo. Then, Archie delivers a revelation. Cassandra is still alive. Reuniting with the others, they ignite the prison in flames, a signal of rebellion. As they leave, Percy, for the first time in years, smiles. His sister is alive. At Whitestone Castle, Cassandra watches the fire consume the prison. Delilah and Byron Anders stand beside her. Delilah, unshaken, assures her Percy's return changes nothing. Back in the day, many years ago, Professor Anders instructed young Percy and Cassandra Derolo on the uses of Whitestone's precious mineral residuum. Cassandra, ever the mischief maker, teased her brother as he tried to focus. Their lesson was interrupted by the Derolo parents, who rejected Anders' demand for a refinery. Enraged, he argued, then turned his frustration toward the children, proving himself to be a coward at heart. Now, in the present, Archibald Desney prepares to spread word of Vox Machina's victory over Carrion Stonefell to the remaining rebels. Meanwhile, tensions brew as Vax confronts Percy for pointing the list at him. Vex, ever the pragmatist, asks how he even created the weapon. Percy recalls his escape from the Briarwoods, how he survived on the streets, haunted by nightmares. In one such dream, a vision of the pepper box came to him. Upon waking, he built the weapon, shrouded in swirling black smoke. When he finishes his tale, Grog, curious as ever, asks about the names carved into its barrels. While Percy shares his dark history, Keyleth communes with the Sun Tree. She senses deep necromantic corruption in its roots, weakening its very essence. Hoping to restore it, she conjures sunlight, only to accidentally set the roots ablaze. The party panics, quickly dousing the flames before they attract attention. As the group regroups, Vex and Vax argue about Keyleth's mistake possibly exposing them. Before they can settle the matter, Archie returns with a plan. Target one of Whitestone's so-called new nobles and burn down their home as a distraction. Scanlan, the self-proclaimed Master of Chaos, volunteers. Despite skepticism, they let him go. With flair, Scanlan lures away the guards at Goran Vedmire's estate and sneaks inside. Perhaps by accident, perhaps not, he stumbles upon Vedmire relieving himself, triggering a frantic chase through the house. Trapped in a room full of guards, Scanlan downs a potion, discovering it grants him teleportation. Unfortunately, it wears off just as Vedmire corners him again. He tries another potion. This one shrinks him. Mildly infuriating, but another means of escape. When that effect fades, he takes a third. This time, nothing happens, until Vedmire kicks his most prized possession, the family jewels. Then, flames erupt from Scanlan's mouth. The fire-breathing potion ignites the house, burning Vedmire and his men. The perfect distraction. Meanwhile, Vox Machina strategizes at their hideout, Vex quietly asking Percy about Cassandra, while also worrying about Scanlan. Their concerns are answered when Vax spots the blaze in the distance. Scanlan has succeeded. Archie rushes to rally the rebels as the party carefully infiltrates Anders' estate. That is, until Grog, impatient as ever, simply kicks down the door. Arrows rain upon him, but instead of slowing, he roars into battle, and the others follow suit. On the roof, Vedmire catches up to Scanlan. Struggling at first, Scanlan focuses, then fires lightning from his crotch, shocking Vedmire. Summoning Scanlan's hand, he makes a grand escape, flipping Vedmire off for good measure. Inside, Percy tracks down Anders in his study, only to find Cassandra held hostage. Gun raised, he threatens Anders, but the treacherous tutor does the unthinkable. He slits Cassandra's throat. Percy watches in horror as his sister collapses, bleeding out. What have you done, you backstabbing scoundrel? At the Temple of Everlight, Pike once again enters the Dark Realm, chasing the distant light. This time, thorns rise from the ground, grasping at her, and she is forced back to reality. The head cleric advises rest, but Pike, determined, insists on trying again, alone. Meanwhile, in Whitestone, Percy yells for help as Cassandra bleeds out. Keyleth and Vax rush in, working to heal her. Percy turns to face Anders, but the treacherous tutor only sneers. Percy fires, but misses. Anders vanishes into his darkened library, and Percy follows. Inside, strengthened by the Briarwoods' dark gifts, Anders uses his silver tongue to command enchanted suits of armor to attack. Vax arrives just in time to assist. In the main hall, Grog and Vex finish off the remaining guards. Hearing the commotion, they rush to join the battle. As Keyleth tends to Cassandra, the young Dorolo briefly awakens, and, after a brief introduction, Keyleth transforms into her beast form to fight, and Cassandra falls unconscious again. Back in the library, Percy identifies a weakness in the armor's joints, allowing him, Vax, and Vex to dismantle them swiftly. But Anders has one last trick, using his silver tongue to command Grog to turn on his friends. At the temple, Pike is ensnared by the thorns again, unable to return. This time, she is dragged beneath the water and into the unknown. As she pleads for guidance, a radiant light, a woman's form, appears to her. Everlight's voice is unwavering. Lies will not lead you back. In the library, Vox Machina struggles to subdue Grog, but before they can break Anders' hold, the tutor works his dark magic again, turning all of them against Percy. Cornered, Percy tries a new tactic. Feigning regret, he apologizes to Anders for how his parents mistreated him. The lie works. Long enough for Percy's eyes to darken and for him to fire a perfectly aimed bullet, ricocheting into Anders' mouth and severing his cursed tongue. The magic fades and his friends return to themselves. With cold finality, Percy dons his mask and executes Anders. The smoke swirls around him again. Percy with no mercy. Keyleth watches with concern, but Cassandra's weak voice pulls Percy away. He kneels beside her, apologizing for abandoning her, believing she had died. Cassandra reveals the Briarwoods kept her as a figurehead, but she has secretly worked for the Resistance. Vex uncovers a star chart in the house, which Keyleth recognizes. It marks the approaching solstice, just 5 days away. As a signal, Keyleth illuminates the Dorolo crest in the sky. The people of Whitestone, including Yenin, see it. So does Delilah Briarwood. Within the castle, she kills her steward, using his body for a necromantic ritual. Back in the Everlight's realm, Pike finally admits the truth. She enjoys the chaos, the drinking, the fights with Vox Machina. The Everlight answers, any path can be holy if walked in truth. In Whitestone, a wounded Scanlan stumbles through the streets, spotting the Dorolo crest. His mood sours when he mistakes a couple for lovers, only to realize it's a zombie devouring a villager. Scanlan races to the others with a warning. The dead have risen. Long ago, in the depths of the Briarwoods Manor, Silas lay dying, his body frail and fading. A desperate Delilah pleaded for him to hold on, but the doctor confirmed the inevitable. There was nothing more to be done. Refusing to accept this fate, Delilah followed a strange call into the forest, stumbling upon an eerie, abandoned building. Inside, she discovered a necromantic tome, its pages whispering forbidden secrets. With its power, she summoned a dark entity, which descended from the ceiling and revived Silas. But when she embraced him, she realized the horrifying truth. Silas was now a vampire. The Dark Age has begun. In the present, Vox Machina fought their way through Whitestone, Keyleth rescuing Vax from the relentless undead, while Grog carved a bloody path with his axe. Bryn led them to a safe house, where Archie turned to Percy for guidance. But Percy, still consumed by personal vengeance, refused to lead. As tensions rise, the undead tore through the walls. Scanlan was bitten, and many rebels were slaughtered or fled in terror. Escaping onto the rooftops, they debated their next move. Percy unveiled bad news and took aim at a towering zombie giant, his new bad friend, but more giants soon emerged. Vex commanded the group to flee and regroup at the Sun Tree. As chaos engulfed the city, Duke Vedmire spotted Scanlan once more. Scanlan ran, while Percy and Archie fought side by side. Archie, ever the true rebel, urged Percy to lead, but Percy still resisted. Vedmire closed in. To save Scanlan, Archie took the fight to Vedmire himself and paid the price with his life. The rebels, heartbroken, fell back while Vox Machina barely escaped. With the horde closing in, Keyleth unleashed her power, freezing dozens of undead in place, granting them time to reach the Sun Tree. There, Cassandra confronted Percy once more. The people needed a leader. Finally, Percy stepped forward, declaring his name, his lineage, and his fight. In the name of Whitestone and the Dorolos, he led the charge. As the battle raged, Vax, in true dramatic fashion, chose the moment to confess his love to Keyleth. Really? In the middle of a war? Come on, man. But then, the Dawnfather answered their prayers. Thunder crashed, and a glowing divine pike appeared. Her presence alone sent ripples of holy wrath through the undead horde. Scanlan, overwhelmed, jokingly proposed. Grog, overcome with joy, crushed her in a hug. Pike obliterated waves of undead, shifting the tide of battle. Seeing defeat on the horizon, Silas prepared to join the fight, but Delilah stopped him. It was time to accelerate their plans. Vedmire, watching the rebels claim victory, flew into a rage. Percy promptly shot his leg out, leaving him to the mob of Whitestone's people, who tore into him and later hung him from the Sun Tree. With Yenin declaring the rebels victorious, she urged Vox Machina onward. Whitestone Castle awaited. Percy and Cassandra led them through secret tunnels beneath the fortress, but as they strategized, a woman in a cell interrupted them. She could lead them to the Briarwoods, if they freed her. Vax began picking the lock, but Percy, mask on, black smoke curling around him, raised the list. Percy's gun remains locked on Anna Ripley, his vision clouded by memories. Cassandra falling to Ripley's arrows during their escape, the torturous experiments she performed on him under the Briarwoods' orders. The smoke curls around him. Keyleth begs him to wait. He fires, but the bullet strikes the wall instead of Ripley. Fury still burns in Percy's eyes, but Ripley offers information. Cassandra, sensing a better approach, suggests an interrogation. As Vax picks the lock, Scanlan voices a growing concern, the black smoke that surrounds Percy in moments of anger. Pike, seeking answers, asks Percy's permission to investigate. She reaches out with divine energy and confirms the chilling truth. The smoke is demonic. Percy, unfazed, insists they deal with it later. Percy presses him for a promise, and he swears on his family name. Dorollos will always put their family first. Under interrogation, Ripley insists she was merely an engineer, the Briarwoods her patrons before imprisoning her. She confirms that the Briarwoods are preparing for their ritual in the Ziggurat, which Scanlan verifies through Delilah's book. Cassandra urges Percy to trust her instincts, and Ripley offers to lead them. Percy searches her bag and finds a crude pepperbox pistol. He does not let her keep it. Above ground, Keeper Yenin leads rebel forces in reclaiming Whitestone, while below, Vox Machina navigates the underground halls. As they move, Ripley reveals she helped reinforce the Ziggurat using residuum. When Percy unknowingly triggers one of her own traps, Ripley stops him from being injured, using the moment to argue she should lead instead. As they reach the Dorollo catacombs, Delilah's magic reanimates Percy's ancestors. The undead Dorollos attack, and the party fights them off. Grog, delighted by the battle, cannot stop laughing. He gleefully forces open a heavy door, leading them further in. They reach a residuum refinement chamber, and Ripley identifies it as Byron Anders' work. Keyleth spots a drain, but before they can investigate, something horrifying happens. Cassandra's name appears on Percy's gun. Percy turns. Cassandra stands in the doorway. She presses a button, lowering a green energy wall. Vax slips under just in time, daggers drawn, and Cassandra meets him with a rapier. Then, Silas and Delilah emerge. They praise Cassandra. Vax lunges, but Silas enthralls him. Percy, betrayed, asks why. Cassandra's answer cuts deep. Because you left me. She is now truly a Briarwood. Vax, entranced, presses a button. The drain seals, and acid begins flooding the chamber. Desperate, the team tries to escape. Scanlan conjures Scanlan's hand, lifting them up. Grog carrying a catatonic Percy. Vex slaps him back to reality. They must save Cassandra and Vax. The release mechanism is buried under the acid. Grog, without hesitation, strips naked, dives in, and yanks the final switch. That is some hero work, you big monster. 3 cheers for Grog. The acid drains. They press forward. At the Ziggurat, Delilah grins. They now have 2 sacrifices, Cassandra and Vax. At the Ziggurat's peak, Delilah clutches a pocket watch, preparing her ritual. Silas effortlessly moves the stone pillars blocking the temple doors, and as Delilah casts her necromantic spell, the residuum ignites. Vox Machina arrives just in time, realizing Delilah's book wasn't a mere spellbook. It was an instruction manual for the Whispered One. The solstice, when the planes are weakest, is the perfect time for her ritual. As the party prepares to rescue Vax and Cassandra, Vex leads the charge, while Grog sets his sights on Silas. As they ascend, Ripley urges Percy to abandon this fight and join her instead. Percy refuses. As Ripley flees, Percy's rage surges and the smoke thickens. Keyleth warns him not to lose control, and Orthax, the demon lurking within him, recoils in fury. At the summit, Delilah offers Cassandra to Silas as a feast, but Percy interrupts. Enchanted, Vax turns on the party, while Delilah's magic knocks Grog from the Ziggurat. Keyleth roots Vax in place just long enough for Percy to rush toward the Briarwoods. Vex tackles Vax down the stairs, trying to break him free. Percy, possessed by Orthax, nearly shoots Silas, but Cassandra steps in front of the barrel, snapping him out of it. Keyleth binds Silas in vines, but he easily breaks free and hurls her off the Ziggurat. She rolls toward the Sun Tree. Pike battles Silas, but begins flickering as her astral form weakens. Scanlan attempts to help, but is silenced by Delilah's magic. Percy, losing himself to Orthax, nearly shoots Cassandra, but Silas comes hard at Percy. Cassandra flashes back to their childhood, the days before torture and betrayal, before Silas reclaims her mind. Together, Cassandra and Silas raise their swords against Percy. Desperate, Keyleth reaches out to the Sun Tree and summons a burst of sunlight. Silas recoils. Vax breaks free of his enchantment, and Vex, overwhelmed, throws her arms around him. Pike breaks Delilah's magic, freeing Scanlan. Silas rushes to kill Keyleth, but Grog returns, standing in his way. Silas attempts to enthrall Grog, but the Goliath resists, closing his eyes and swinging wildly until his axe buries itself in Silas's gut. With the vampire weakened, Grog lifts him into the sunlight and Keyleth obliterates him. Delilah screams in rage. Possessed, Percy nearly succumbs to Orthax, but Delilah's grief shakes the temple. Cassandra saves Percy from falling as Delilah flees inside. She calls upon the Whispered One, seeking his favor. A whirlwind surges. Green lightning strikes the residuum altar, and an ominous robed figure appears, before suddenly vanishing, leaving behind a crackling, floating orb. Delilah's ritual has failed. Before she can process her loss, Percy, fully overtaken by Orthax, shoots her twice. Vex clutches a wounded Keyleth, calling for Pike. Pike barely responds before her astral form vanishes, and in her temple far away, Pike awakens. Vax desperately tries to revive Keyleth, but nothing works. Vex gives him an elixir, but her veins darken. It's not helping. Scanlan realizes the spinning orb is suppressing magic. As panic spreads, Percy, consumed by vengeance, dismisses Keyleth as a lost cause, enraging Vex. Vox Machina leaves the temple, Cassandra dragging a broken Delilah Briarwood with them. Grog finds Silas's sword and claims it. Vax, desperate, recalls Keyleth's healing herbs and, with Scanlan's help, manages to save her. Thank God for his quick thinking. Meanwhile, Percy and Cassandra confront Delilah. She sneers, claiming the Whispered One has abandoned her. Percy, still under Orthax's influence, raises the list, ready to torture her first. The smoke coils around him. Keyleth wakes up and warns everyone. If Orthax gets what it wants, Percy's soul will be lost. Vax shouts at him, but Percy, possessed, points his gun at Vex. She steps forward, pleading with him to remove the mask. With tears in his eyes, he does. Percy, struggling, turns the gun on himself. Orthax's shadow solidifies. Percy grabs Vex by the throat. As the others try to intervene, Keyleth tells Vax that only Percy can break free. Percy's vision twists. He sees Anders lecturing him, Silas threatening Cassandra, Stonefell taunting his parents. He fires blindly, nearly killing his friends. Vex's voice cuts through the illusion. Percy demands to know who Orthax really is. The demon reveals the truth. Percy summoned it himself, driven by his thirst for vengeance. As Cassandra begs him to stop, Vex and Grog's name appear on the list. Percy's hallucinations morph. His enemies become his friends. Overwhelmed, he raises the gun at Delilah. Percy agrees to the Orthax, it seems, but then he turns the gun away and shoots himself through the hand. The bullet tears through the demon's grip, and Orthax screams as it vanishes into the gun. Cassandra rushes to Percy. He is himself again, Delilah, beaten but defiant, warns them the Whispered One will return. But before she can act, Cassandra executes her with her rapier. As they leave, Percy tries to reclaim the list, but Scanlan tosses it into the acid. Orthax briefly rises from the gun, shrieking as it dissolves. Above ground, Whitestone celebrates. Percy tells Cassandra she should lead, and she smiles. Meanwhile, Vax confesses his love to Keyleth, but she gently tells him she isn't ready to reciprocate. Scanlan tells Yennon about the spinning orb of death. She reveals a holy man had gone to study it. Unbeknownst to her, he was just torn apart and sucked inside. Vox Machina returns to Emon. Keyleth uses her newfound ability to open a portal through the Sun Tree, which begins to sprout leaves once more. Back home, Percy crafts new weapons, a green gem embedded in his wounded hand. Their peace is short-lived. At the Cloudtop District, Sovereign Uriel steps down, ceding power to the Tal'Dorei Council. Then, Vex senses them. Dragons. Bells toll. 4 massive dragons descend upon Emon. Brace yourselves, Vox Machina. All hell is about to break loose. With that, ends the first season of Vox Machina. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next season.